Your first time singing in front of people?
I would tell my younger self to learn to play guitar sooner. I mean, I didn't start playing until I was 21, so I would have liked to have started playing when I was 5.
Hey friends, it's your girl Emily Curl back in my virtual studio today, and we are hanging out with country music superstar. He is the reigning CMA Entertainer of the Year. We have Luke Combs here with us. Luke, it's good to see you. Does that intro ever get old? I mean, that's gotta feel good.
Oh, no, it's great. Love it.
Well, we're excited to talk to you today. First and foremost, I want to say congratulations since you became a dad. So you and Nicole just welcomed baby Tex. How are you feeling? How is fatherhood treating you?
It's good. It's great. It's going really well. It's fun stuff. It really is.
Yeah. What do you think is the most surprising thing you found about being a dad?
Really how much fun it is, right? Even when they're small and they can't do anything. It's rewarding in a lot of ways that, are unexpected.
Yeah. So you have your actual baby, and then I feel like this album has got to be your baby as well. So Getting Old, this is the companion album to Growing Up that you just released last year, of course. Did you always know that you wanted to do a project similar to this where you're going to have the two parts?
No, not really. All these, the songs from this album and the last one were kind of all recorded at a similar times. And as I tried to compile a track list for, what would have been my third album, it became kind of clear to me that there was two really different groups of songs that were kind of raising their hand, I guess. And that's where that idea was born out of, was really the fact that I felt like there was two different things going on and each needed their own kind of separate space to live in.
What did you envision for Getting Old? What did you want to include on there? What themes did you want to explore? How did you know what was going to go on this project in particular?
Yeah, I think it's just the songwriting really started to change as not really the process, but the content, just kind of became more mature, I guess, as a lot of this was written, over COVID. So a lot of time spent at home, they're just thinking about more time to think than you've ever had, especially doing what, I do for a living and, not having the opportunity to go out and do what you love. And so you really just, you spend a lot of time contemplating, and also while, getting married and having your first kid and starting to go back on the road and like all those different things just kind of led themselves to a different kind of theme, I guess, or a different sonically sounding album as well.
Yeah, I mean, and the album is so good. I've been listening to it all day, and there's so many songs that jumped out at me. I mean, Love You Anyway, You Found Yours, Five Leaf Clover I love, but the one that really got me was that part, which you end the album with. Tell me a little bit about that track in particular.
Yeah, that song's a few years old, probably pre-COVID, I would say, really. And that was just a song that I felt like, I really wanted to wait, until I did have kind of a moment like this. And I knew that eventually things would transition as far as the music goes, and I wanted to have that song on there whenever that happened. And it's not really put on there to garner sympathy or anything like that. It's really just that song was really cathartic for me, and I think it was something that we all just really wanted to say, and I'm glad that it's out.
Is there a song on the album that you're most proud of?
I think there's a bunch for a bunch of different reasons. I think Take You With Me, I think is great. I mean, that's my first song I kind of really wrote about my son, and Love You Anyway is a great one. I mean they're all special to me for different reasons.
Well, you mentioned your son. I thought we could play a little game along with the album that goes in tandem with Getting Old. So the way this is going to work is I have a few scenarios. So I'm going to throw out a scenario and you're going to tell me what you think younger Luke would do, what current Luke would do, and
Okay.
what advice you'd give your son Tex.
Okay.
First one, learning to drive.
Yeah, I mean, the first place I drove younger me as I drove to Bojangles, right? That was the first thing I ever did.
Okay, we swore by Bojangles. That was the best.
Oh, man. I would probably do the same thing, and I would give my son the same advice. So going to Bojangles.
All right, what about asking someone on a first date?
I would tell younger me to have more confidence. I wouldn't do it now because I'm married, so I would get murdered for that. And then I would tell my son to just ask, right? I mean, the worst you can hear is no.
What about getting through your first heartbreak?
I would tell younger me that, it gets better, right? Gosh, what would I do now? I mean, at the stage of my career where I've had to deal with heartbreak now, I'd probably just not deal with it. That would be probably the easiest way at the moment if I had to deal with something like that. And then I would tell my son, I would just tell him to be kind to yourself, right? Like let yourself feel those things, right? I think it's important to go through those kind of things. So I would probably tell him to just feel the hurt.
What about going the music route? Your first time singing in front of people?
I would tell my younger self to learn to play guitar sooner. That's what I would do. I mean, I didn't start playing until I was 21, so I would have liked to have started playing when I was 5. Now, I'm like, you got it, bro. I mean, we're doing this right now.
Doing it.
You know, we're doing it. Tex, what would I tell him? I would tell him to only do it if you want to, not because you feel like you have to, because of who your dad is.
What about dealing with a bully?
Jeez.
We're really asking you that. We're really going for it, Luke.
Deep diving questions, right? Younger, I don't know. I just didn't really, wasn't like in that scenario, I guess, you know? So I would tell my son probably, I mean, sometimes you just gotta punch somebody in the face, you know? I mean, that's kind of, sometimes it comes down to that, right? I mean, that's not the first thing, right? Like, you don't want to do that first. You don't want to resort to that first, but you got to make a point sometimes, I think, in those situations. So
it's like standing up for yourself.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta let people know that, you know, you're not somebody to be messed with.
All right, next one. What about getting your first real paycheck?
Well, my younger self, I would say, like, man, this is it. You know, it gets better. Things are looking up. What would I tell myself now? You're going to have a lot of expenses associated with that paycheck. And what would I tell my son? You earned it, right? So spend it like you worked for it.
Okay, Luke, last one for you is, what about just an important life lesson?
I wish that I would have had better work ethic when I was younger, like in my teenage years, you know. I just didn't really apply myself very well. And that's I kind of regret that. You know, wish I would have had more of that.
Do you feel like you have that now?
With certain things. I mean, not with everything, not as much as I would like to. I mean, I don't think you're ever where you want to be, right? My son, one piece of advice, be who you want to be. That's the most important thing, right? Do what makes you happy. You know, those things that are cliche that don't worry about what anybody else thinks. You know, I mean, it's like those things sound so corny, but they're just super true.
What would you tell him if he wanted to go into music like his dad?
Make friendships with people that you create music with, right? Like, that's one of the most cherished things that I have, right? Is like a lot of the guys I write songs with, you know, are close friends of mine, you know, and we hang out outside of just writing songs together. And I think that can make for some super great music. And also, you know, you get a chance to hang out with your friends and work at the same time, which is like pretty sick.
What came first, the friends or the writing?
I mean, it's obviously songwriters first, right? Like moving to Nashville and meeting those guys. I mean, I have tons of friends that aren't songwriters, you know, they're from back home and college. But this group of friends that I have here is, you know, it's all guys I met that, you know, we're kind of at the same stage of our careers, which is essentially having nothing and, you know, creating something together, I think, which is a super unifying thing. So it's been really cool.
I mean, Luke, it's just wild to think about. When you close your eyes and you imagine you're going back to that kid who like loves country music, and to see yourself now, does it feel real? Like, is this what you dreamed about and more? Have you taken the time to like reflect on that? Does it seem real to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the shows are, you know, I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff like coming back to Song the Part, you know, there's a lot of stuff that you don't realize goes into it. But when you boil it down to, you know, if I could just write songs and go in the studio and play shows, you know, it would be roses, right? Like everything would be great. And not that everything's not great, because it really is, but there's so many other moving parts to it that are just crazy that I never would have imagined. But it's really, really great.
What would you say is the part that is the most challenging for you, or the part that you could do away with?
I mean, really, to be candid, would be stuff like this. I mean, you know, I mean, I think that's the reality that like nobody really thinks about. And again, not trying to garner sympathy, like this is part of my job.
But they're long days. You don't even realize how long of days they are. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, today it's, you know, it was, you know, 8:50 to, I don't know, I would imagine probably at least 6 or 7, which a lot of people are going to laugh at. And I would agree that 99% of people listening to this have a more difficult job than me. You know, when you want to be writing songs or being creative or working on the show, it's like there are things that take precedent over that maybe as the artist you are like not as nearly as important as how good the show is going to be, or you know, how good the songs are going to be, you know. So, but it's awesome, you know, like would I want to be doing anything else? Not a chance, you know. I mean, I love doing this. It's what I was meant to do, I feel like, you know. And you know, it's also me doing things like this allows 40 or 50 people on my payroll to have a salary for the whole year, you know, and to go out and work Most of the guys, work 40, 50 days, 60 days a year, and there's other guys that work more, but, me doing all this stuff allows those guys to do that.
And I think going back to that too, one thing I think is interesting that people underestimate is, when you have these long work days, it's yourself, you're putting yourself out there, which can be mentally exhausting in a way. So we just always appreciate your time, Luke, and we are so excited for your album getting old. It's out now. Thank you so much for taking the time for all of the advice.
Of course. Appreciate it. Thank y'all.
Congratulations on everything. We can't wait to see you on the road. And of course, for everyone watching, make sure you stream all of Luke Combs' music on iHeartCountry, including his new album, Getting Old, out now. Luke, I will wrap it for your time, but thank you so much. It was so good to see you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.